2024 is shaping up to be a rather significant year for the Sonic franchise. Between the release of the third movie, the Knuckles TV series, the final season of Sonic Prime, future releases for the ongoing IDW comic series, post-launch content for games like Superstars and Dream Team, and one of the bigger events, a remaster of 2011's Sonic Generations, with an all-new campaign centered on Shadow the Hedgehog. In theory, this should be one of the best times to be a Sonic fan in recent memory, but for the last one in particular, I can't help but have several concerns. The elephant in the room is that Sonic remasters have been notoriously poor. Sonic Colors Ultimate launched in such an embarrassingly poor state that it still lingers over perception of the game today. Sonic Origins launched with glaring issues on top of delisting the original versions of the games entirely, and the less said about the Sonic Adventure ports, the better. Much like Sonic Generations, these are all games that by all means it should have been slam dunks, but were absolutely not. While this isn't a guarantee that the game will end up the same way, it's also quite unsettling to pick up on the fact that even the best of Sonic's library isn't safe from suffering Star Wars Special Edition syndrome, perhaps to an even worse degree than those movies. If it isn't bizarre visual or audio changes, then having minimal, if any, changes may be even more bizarre. Sonic Generations is a very visually appealing game, this is true, but it's also very noticeably a 2011 game, and putting it next to the new Shadow stages that are built off Sonic Frontiers makes the contrast even more jarring. And that's to say nothing of the overall level design and overall presentation. You need only look at a Sonic Generation stage next to just a few snippets of Shadow's new stages to see this on display. The design and story philosophies for Sonic a decade ago are very different from what they are now. Even with the idea that this release is Sonic's response to Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, the idea that these two are taking place at the same time feels like a rather tough sell, at least to me. Ian Flynn has hinted that he has some degree of involvement with Shadow's campaign, and even if not him directly, the writing of the franchise now is so incredibly different from that of the 2010s, it will just stick out like a sore thumb when you put the two right next to each other. One common concern that I share is what will happen to the original listing for Sonic Generations. Sonic Generations is far and away the most modded Sonic title out there. In the 13 years since its release, it's sort of taken on a life of its own, from overhauls to quality of life improvements to new stages, even the daytime stages from Sonic Unleashed. If this is being treated as an entirely new release, especially with the inclusion of de novo DRM, most, if not all of these mods are going to break and not be supported on the new version, and if Sonic Generations itself is delisted, as what happened to Sonic 1, 2, 3, and CD on digital platforms prior to the release of Sonic Origins, many people are going to lose access to these mods entirely and simply never have the chance to play them. No solution to this is entirely ideal either. Either we encourage piracy for people to obtain a 2011 copy through illegitimate means, or we wait and simply hope that this release gets heavy conversions as what happened to Sonic Adventure's Steam release. And there's absolutely no guarantee that this will ever happen or is even possible. There is a non-zero chance that the original won't be delisted or will be provided as a bundle for the re-release, but as always, there's a lot of factors we don't know here, so I wouldn't advise getting your hopes up. The biggest and perhaps more personal point I could bring up is, I just find this rather frustrating. This release makes the franchise feel like it's been running in circles for almost 15 years now, with nostalgia being the primary driving force of the franchise. How many Sonic games since Sonic Generations have featured Green Hill, or Chemical Plant, or classic Sonic and his associated iconography, or relied on nostalgia? At this point, the use of classic Sonic and nostalgia can feel absolutely suffocating, and that's a little depressing for a franchise that always dared to be different, and was always running full steam ahead into bold new ideas and territory, even if the payoff didn't always entirely work out. It's entirely fair to say that Sonic Generations is the safest bet they could make for a re-release, especially with the new Shadow video content in the forthcoming Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie, introducing Shadow to Sonic's cinematic adventures. But that's the entire problem. This franchise has been relying almost exclusively on safe bets for 14 years now, and while Sonic Generations is a perfectly fine celebration game on its own, it's just a depressing reminder how little has actually happened since the original release 13 years ago. I can't help but feel like Sonic Adventure 2, a game that was Shadow's literal debut and remains one of the most beloved games and stories in the entire franchise, would have at least made more sense to port forward to modern systems like Nintendo Switch. Sonic Adventure 2's PC port came out shortly after the launch of Sonic Generations, so, buggy launcher notwithstanding, it's in a very similar position as far as pure accessibility goes. It all just makes me miss the times when new releases moved the needle and moved the franchise forward, and didn't rely so much on reminding you of older, better games. I believe it was Blaze Hedgehog who said it best in his Sonic Mania review, and it only rings more true today. At this point, it can feel like there are more Sonic games banking on nostalgia than there are Sonic games to be nostalgic for. This video could very well age incredibly poorly, and all my fears could be entirely misplaced. I would want nothing more than for this to be true, but even in an ideal world where this happens, I don't think it will do anything to remedy the frustration and burnout of the series being seemingly content to stay exactly where it is. The odd remake or remaster or re-release here or there is one thing, but more and more Sonic as a franchise has become reliant on member berries, and that's a depressing thing to think about. This video was a bit more down than I usually like to be, but it's something that I thought if I didn't speak up on now, I would lose my chance forever, and getting better and faster at releasing videos is something I'm making a concerted effort towards. And thank you so much to Aoi Blue Sky for her help with the Sonic Frontiers footage, and thank you so much to J. Lewis Johnny for his help with the thumbnail. Without their help, this video wouldn't have turned out as well as it did, and thank you so much everybody for watching. If you liked what you saw, consider subscribing and ringing the notification bell. Leaving a like and comment helps a lot too. I also have a Ko-fi if you'd like to support this show and make my life easier, but don't feel too bad if you can't give anything right now. And now that Persona 3 Reload is out, I'm gonna be playing that all day every day, regardless of everything. Thank you for watching.